Oh shit. Mm. Yikes. You know what? I think just realized. I thought I opened my mini meter. I opened it, and I just realized it's on the second screen. I got a little over here. Still don't think that's quite on there. Yeah, there's two spots I think where I don't have the swing right. Oh, if the swing's the right phrase for that, maybe it's a little too blocky, a little on the grid-ish. Don't know if it really is on the grid. Probably. But in relation to each other, it's like 4 hits right in a row. It isn't that bad. What's that one? Yeah, it has to be. Okay. just realized how annoying that probably is. I got my volume down a little bit. I'm trying to work out this beat, trying to make a not make a knockoff version of another song, but just kind of trying to recreate it and learn from it a bit. Yeah, the purple one is the original, and all the other shit is mine. But mine is definitely not as good as theirs, but I'm also not that I expect it to be as good as theirs when I'm done, but well, I could tell you from experience that that's not the way to get it to come out the way you want it to. Yeah, if you really want to do it, and well, I mean, not to say you should kill yourself every minute of every day till it's done, but if you really want to do it, don't sleep on it. I know there's a couple points where I don't think I ever like really like stopped, but there was definitely a couple points where it kind of really kind of slowed down, and I kind of started mostly when I started gaming. There was like probably about a year there where I got into Rocket League and the music wasn't going well, so I kind of was trying to it started off as that was the escape, and then it was like I was kind of like looking for like an escape from it because like I was having a rough time, but that's definitely not the way to go, at least in my experience. It wasn't. Maybe some people, but I would not recommend it. Oh yeah, how long have you been making music? Yeah, based just on the couple sentences, which isn't much. I would consider getting some type of lessons, like not just like some online videos either, like something that actually has some type of like live coaching, like at least an element of it. But yeah, you could waste a lot of time and be missing out on some pretty obvious things when you don't know what you don't know. Yeah, if you've been doing it for that long and you could spend 30 hours on a track and still, feel like you're not winning, then I would definitely recommend getting some type of in-person coaching. I know I struggled a lot longer than I needed to. To be honest, I'm kind of still struggling a bit longer than I needed to. I got myself into a class and I was having trouble with it. And for a while, I was thinking, it was just because I was like completely dumb. And then had a couple of things, that happened and that I noticed that I think were contributing to. I don't want to say that I was dumb, but I think even without those issues, I would have had a bit of a tough time with some of it. Like I did all right, figuring out audio and instruments and, the basics of that side of it. But I never really put in much time in arrangement mode, any time in arrangement mode. I never really put any time into editing audio, and I spent way too long before I, really got anything about song structure. But even beyond that, there's a lot of just like, you know, just all kind of things, and like, when you don't know what you don't know, you can waste a lot of time. I know, like when I got into it, wasn't necessarily afraid to spend any money on learning, but like, I grew up without having, a lot of money. So, even when I have money now, I still tend to have, those cheap tendencies sometimes. And I think I got like some kind of thing whenever I first started out, like a quick thing, but that was mostly to learn Ableton. And they had some other stuff on there, but I never really, got into their style. But it was enough to get me going, and I really didn't mess with it for a while. I had a couple things over time, but nothing that really, really spoke to me. Nothing with actual like personal coaching. But the new one I'm in is pretty good. But oh yeah, that's right. I didn't really get through that. But I took a little break because I was kind of feeling like I was having a mental breakdown, and I was just gonna take like a couple weeks off. And then I actually kind of had a breakthrough, and I made something that was like actually like a complete song one night. I was like totally fucking geeked about it. This is awesome. I think I got my confidence back. I think my emotions are under control. I think I can go back and do this thing. And then, well, actually, I kind of skipped over stuff. I also realized that I have a sleeping problem, and that I've only been getting maybe like 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night at best. I ended up doing a sleep test, and I got it was like 4 hours and 10 minutes of sleep, and that was like the best sleep I've probably had in a year. Stayed up like 2 days before I took the test to make sure I was nice and tired. But and then after that happened, I had been having a hard time at work. Like I'd been there for a long time, and the place was just really going downhill. And it just so happened to be the week that they were doing their yearly employee surveys. And after I had written that song, I had 3 days in a row in the studio where everything just went crappy, and and work was kind of sucking. And I was like, well, you know what? If they want a freaking, a review, I'll give them a review. And so that Friday was the last day for those things. It was like 3 days after I, wrote that first song, and so I wrote the letter, and it was pretty freaking harsh. Like, and you know, I just hacked it out in like an hour, like some misspellings. It wasn't edited well. I prefaced it with that. I was like, there's gonna be some misspellings, and I probably could have worded some shit better. But but this is what you get. And on Monday, I was there for about an hour before I got an email telling me they wanted me in a meeting first thing. So I went up and went to the meeting, and they were not happy. They gave me a week's paid vacation while they did their investigations because well, I didn't allege. I've like dropped hard proof of like a lot of like hardcore offenses. I named names, big names, the CEO, the head of HR, everybody, all these complicit people, and I figured, I wasn't, oblivious that they'd be mad and that they might want to, push me out, but I didn't think that they'd be able to get rid of me that quick. And so I was off for that following week, and on Friday they sent a freaking constable to my house with a box of shit. So so then, I kind of started, being like, oh, well, shit, maybe I need to take a minute before I just jump back into this. If I jump back in and jump back out because I'm getting emotional, it's like, I really hate to do it. And I kind of was hanging on for a minute, and then I got diagnosed with the sleep apnea, and everything just keeps getting drawn out. Now like, the only thing I'm waiting on is my sleep apnea machine to get here. It was already supposed to be here like twice. I think this time I'm going to get it on Wednesday. So I'm about to jump back in and actually do my personal coaching lessons. I learned a lot from the material they had, but I could tell I could tell that I wasn't grasping it well. It was only after I lost my job that a lot of it really started sinking in. I think that the stress, like even though my sleep didn't really get better, I think that the stress of the job in combination with the sleep, in combination with, my own learning difficulties, just kind of like took me to the limit. But I am ready to get back on with stuff. But I would definitely recommend getting some type of instruction. I have in the last couple months here, I've come a long way, but I really need to get in on my coaching because I'm still having some trouble with some basic stuff. Yeah, at the time when I was going through the material, it was like, I don't know, I would go blank and shit. I just wasn't real like I could kind of like remember the words, but I couldn't really, I don't know. It sucked. I'm glad to be past that a bit. Now, like I said, I just need to get back on with my lessons because I need them. Right. I think I'm gonna play this once through, switching back and forth between the original and my stuff. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at. And that's like one of the things that I was learning in like this new class is, it's very easy to be on this treadmill of just chasing this next topic after the other. There's a lot of core stuff that I wish that, I could just like, list out some items for you, but there's so much to it. And, you kind of need someone who's already been through all that and is standing, on top of the game board, looking down, watching you play, and be able to go, oh, this is what he needs. This is what's going on, and like the class that I'm in now, like by the end of it, they want you to be knocking out like not like fully fleshed out songs, but they want you to be like hashing out like core songs in like 20 minutes, like once a week. Like you should be able to just sit down and do it. Like the same way that when you sit down with someone, you can just like, you know, just talk and have a conversation. You should kind of be able to do that with laying down music. And, I'm not there yet, but I am a lot closer to there than I was before it. And like I said, I still haven't done my personal coaching yet. But I am definitely like hunkered down on all the core material, the first part of it, and I am like more than, able to discuss it, and I should be able to hopefully finally tie it all together, which I'm kind of starting to do even without the personal coaching. But I'm still finding even with the really good material, there's just gaps where there needs to be conversations. And like I said, having that ability for that person to watch you going through it and be able to see, exactly where you're missing or where you need just a little bit more attention. Well, that's true, but then there's also the side of it to, I don't know how I want to say this, because like there's a lot of different kinds of songs, and sometimes you can, there's there's rules, and then there's breaking the rules, and breaking the rules can lead to very innovative and cool things. Like things don't have to be by the rules to be good, but if your goal is to be good, you need to get to a place where you understand the rules so that you can break them with intention, you know? Like, not to say that nothing great just, you know, sometimes some of the best shit is something that just came off the cuff with no thought from someone with no education and, none of that. But if you look at the people who have all of that shit, they can make just as good of songs. Maybe not every song is going to be that, but they can consistently hammer out good songs. And at the same time, once you get to that point, there's nothing to say that you have to stay with that. Once you kind of understand that, then you kind of move beyond all that and you can start to play in the margins. And that's where real innovation and, stuff comes from. Like you can get, you know, your couple of, really big things that just happen purely on accident. But if you really like drill down and start to know what's going on and then be able to kind of push beyond that and kind of, you know, I don't know. I'm I'm probably not the best person to speak on that kind of shit. I'm not exactly very eloquent, but yeah, if you look at some of the freaking more creative people, over time, like some of the people that did come up with a lot of that shit, a lot of those people are a lot more highly trained than, most people realize too. Especially once they start to get some money, because a lot of yeah, that's I don't know, maybe a different situation. I gotta say it's kind of like the same, but like shit, I lost it. I'm getting all amped up. I like I said, I think that there's room to be both. Like there's a lot of like, a lot of bands that, really put in that work on their studio album, they really do nail it down. And then when you go see them in person, it's a lot looser and, they change it up and, start riffing on things a little bit differently. And but then you listen to like the album version and everything's like real tight and it's like sometimes you love that album version and then you hear this live version of it that they did and you're like, oh man, that live version really kicked its ass. But yeah, I think the best artists can do both. And a lot of them will start off being the, more feeling it kind of thing and they'll get their one hit and and they got all this fucking money and then fucking the studios come asking for another hit and and they can't really just come up with it and then they'll really drill down and start to like learn shit. Like that's kind of like the way the Beatles were when the Beatles started. They didn't write their own songs. They were just some band that played like cover songs or whatever. Like they had played a bunch of cover songs in some bar and and then it turned into like the point where they got like big time and then after they got big time, they came to him and they're like, yeah, you guys gotta start like writing your own music. And like they were fucking nervous wrecks. They're like, we don't know how to do this shit. And then over time, they became very skilled composers. Though uh though towards the end I think some of the song structure started to get a little bit off and that's when they became a little bit less successful. But doesn't necessarily mean that that music was, bad. It just didn't perform well in a, commercial environment or whatever. But I think when I look at the people that tend to be, considered the greats, decades after, I don't know, decades after they're gone, because really music hasn't been that cool for a while, for that long. But I mean, it's, I guess back in the day, Beethoven was fucking the shit. I guess it's, some of it could still fucking be cool to riff on. And also, I think another big key is being able to like merge the two. Like, like the way that the class that I'm in teaches you, you know, you're supposed to be writing fast and loose, and you're not supposed to be making it perfect. Like they break it down into different stages, and you know, and your first stage is supposed to be, you know, very loose and free form, and then it kind of gets tightened up over time, and you know, and you don't really start to work on taking it to the next level until you know, until you've got something raw, and then you just kind of massage it until you know you kind of get it like right in the pocket. Yeah, I almost kind of want to like start like plagiarizing some of the crap from my classes, but definitely don't want to push too far. Not that I don't give out advice or anything, but yeah, but if the problem that comes is if you stagnate, that will take away your bliss. That's what took away my bliss. That's why I started playing so many video games. And if I hadn't, you know, sucked it up and went and got some fucking help, I'd still be playing fucking Rocket League right now. If you look at my freaking, oh, you're on Twitch, you don't see it. I got the same name on YouTube. If you go back and look at my YouTube, you'll see for about the past 6 months I've been streaming music every night for like 3 to sometimes up to 9 hours. And if you look before that, like I said, this last 6 months is that. If you look before that, you'll see about a year of Rocket League streams every single day for like about a year. And if you look before those Rocket League streams, you'll see music streams every day for about a year for like 4 to 6 hours. And you know, and that and those streams were not me first getting into music. I've had a few different waves. I've been messing around for like probably about 10 years now. And if you are not able to constantly be stepping your game up a little bit every week, your 1% a week or whatever it is, you know what I mean? You're gonna, you're just gonna get, you're either gonna drop it and not think about it, or you're gonna get depressed, or you're gonna try to like go into something else. Like you know, I started off with like GTA 5 or something because I had never played the new GTAs. You know, I played the old school shit, but I hadn't really played games in a while. It was just as a little break, you know, afterwards because I was getting a little bit frustrated with not improving after, you know, all that time. And like, and it was just a little bit at the end. And then it like started being like, okay, well, you know, well, I'm not going to stream it anymore, you know, the music anymore because I'm not getting better and I can't keep putting out the crap. And I had that same thing. It's like, you know, this is for me. I don't care if I'm good. I just want to tool around. But the thing is, over time, if you don't, I don't want to say get good, but like if you can't, if you can't constantly be improving, you're going to get like what you got earlier, where you got 30 hours in on one track. And I'm trying to remember what the phrasing is because I don't want to put words in your mouth and make it seem like, you know, yeah, the right after hello, it sounds nice. I'm just hanging out trying to get away from making music. That right there, that's what's going to kill it for you. Yeah, you're just looking for bliss, but because of what you don't know, you can't find it, you know. And that's not to say that you necessarily need to take like instructions forever, but there's a certain hump that once you get over it, it's gonna be like, what? The equivalent of, driving around a car with a flat tire for 5 years without realizing it, you know? There's gonna I don't want to speak in absolutes because I don't know what your situation is. You might be really good and just, just kind of down on yourself. But shit, what was I gonna say now? Sorry, man. My shit bounces all the fuck over. And this is like a subject that really gets my brain going because like I have been unemployed for the last 2.5 months since that story, and it's all I've been thinking about. But yeah, if you really want to like have music as a hobby and all you're looking for is bliss, I'm telling you, man, fucking get somebody that can give you some type of instruction, whether that's like online through Zoom or Skype, or just finding, it don't even got to be like lessons. Just find somebody else who's making music like locally that you could hang out with. You know what I mean? Because that's another thing that's maybe a bit challenging about making music is like in other things, you can take these things up as hobbies and have people to interact with while you're doing them. Whereas, in modern times with, the way we all got this shit just on our computers at home, doing it on our own, even with all the YouTubes and stuff, like you still gotta be able to put it together, and that's what having somebody else in the equation, whether that's an instructor or some type of you know just jam buddy, or or even just someone else that makes music that you could just go over and like hang out and check out their projects and shit. Someone you could be maybe just like chatting with as you're watching. I mean, you get that on YouTube a little bit and shit, but there's something to be said for a like if you can get like real meet space in person, don't give me COVID in person. If you could get like that, that would be key. Like, and short of that, like I said, either someone locally that you could, buddy up with and maybe try to do some kind of collabs with, see if they can, help teach you their workflow, or some type of online course with coaching. Yeah, I would say if you're gonna look for some, I don't know what in-person stuff costs, but if you were gonna look for like online shit, like the course that I'm in, I think I think it was like $800, and it came with 12 half-hour in-person video lessons, and for those lessons, they had, well, I should break it down from the other way first. It'll be more linear. They have, and that seems to be about the cost of the good ones. I paid a little more for some extra materials so that like not that you need any. Like the shit that is in the course is already like holy cow, like tons of like insanely good shit. But like, you know, this guy's been making videos every week for like 12 years now, I think, like high level videos for that long. So it's like he's got like volumes of shit. And like the only thing I'll ever have to pay for again is you know, lessons, which I guess that's all that I had to do anyway, but I've got a lot of extra material. I've got his, lifetime pack, and I get any updates. But it's structured out at like 12 weeks, with each week having a different focus, kind of taking you like from beginning to end, you know, and then with each week you're supposed to make like a 10 to 15 minute video, or maybe it was 5 to 10, and then play your weekly project for them. And then you send in that video, and they check out the video, and then they provide you with some notes, like physical notes. And then you have like, well, you have as much time as you want. And then you schedule another appointment, or I guess you schedule an appointment because you haven't had your appointment yet. And then after you've already gotten your notes and explained to him how you understood and showed him your project, you had a couple more days to think about his notes and maybe try some of that stuff out, and then you get your half-hour session. And they've designed it to be like a weekly thing, but you're allowed to take your time with it. They don't expect you to, it's not like you miss a week and you lose it kind of thing. But oh, I definitely missed. Yeah, if you're at that point, you definitely need lessons. That's one of the things that I'm struggling with, is to be able to hear music in my head that I want to make. I I listen to like a lot of shit, and it's hard for me to even conceive of just being able to free form synthesize sound in my head. Like if I've heard a sound, I can like think of that sound and I can kind of, do that. But to like forge into new ground, like that is kind of tough for me. But if you're at that point, you would really excel in a program like that. And like I said, I don't know how much you've spent on gear and software, but for the 800-ish dollars that you're going to spend on something like that, I mean, it's a drop in the bucket as far as as far as the music game goes. If you've been making shit for 3 years, I imagine you've probably spent more than that by now. If I mean, maybe not. I mean, I guess if you don't have it, you can't. But I mean, shit, $800 comes quick. You get yourself, shit, a copy of Ableton's gonna run you 800 probably. I can't even remember what that cost. I got mine with a push too, so I could. Oh, oh, what, man? God, I thought this box was big. I thought this was a vape cartridge. It's a vape. Oh my god. It better be a fucking good one, man. I hate cheap fucking vape batteries. Ugh. Oh my god. I gotta write to this company and be like, dude, you gotta quit. This is like my favorite freaking medical marijuana company. And like they keep putting out these fucking garbage fucking devices, but their product is like so good. This is the first time I've seen a device that was sold already full like this. It better be a fucking decent one. Oh my god. Fucking Prime. I hate you and love you at the same time. They gotta get better. Yeah, for me, I feel like I need to make a lot of other stuff. Oh man. Yeah, I don't like this. Jeez. Fucking Prime. I'll have to see if my mom wants it. Oh wait, that's right, I can't. It's medical. We both have cards, but we're not allowed to trade stuff. Oh man, it's actually like really strong. Like maybe I just need to not hit it so hard. I'm used to like I was expecting it to be weak. I think I just I didn't even like think about that. Like that was harsh as I was taking it in. I didn't realize it was a high powered device. Adjustment on it? This thing's crazy. It's got a USB-C on it. Huh. I have to look this up later. So, what would you say is like your weakness? Like you, you say you know what you are going for. Like, yeah, do you have any idea what your weakness is? Like song structure, music theory. Like what? Like if you know if you could magically like pick one topic to just kind of have a general understanding of, and you think that that would be your breakthrough. What would you be able to point your finger at something, or are you just kind of like having a hard time putting it all together? Because I know, like, you know, I always felt like I knew the next thing, and to some extent I was right, but there was a couple things that weren't necessarily necessary, but would have been such like groundbreakers that like just like early on that like just like for some reason some weird preference it wasn't that like I didn't want to do anything. Yeah, it definitely sounds like you need to find some structure, not necessarily because you want to be a structured artist. Like most of the stuff that you listen to that sounds like raw emotion, and I'm not saying that it's not raw emotion, but it's not being made the way that you necessarily think. Like even the most like avant-garde artists, well, I shouldn't say that. There's exceptions to every rule. There's some people that are just fucking born geniuses, but most people that get to a point of being able to be successful enough for you to know their name, you know, there's a lot more theory and structure going on that that you'd never guess. Like good music can just happen, but not 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 that much. Like it's the exception rather than the rule. Like you can throw darts at the dartboard and you can aim for anything, but you're probably going to have your best luck if you're aiming for the bullseye. Like but yeah, it's but yeah, if you're editing audio and you're, editing MIDI and you're messing around with synths, if you're using effects, if but yeah, by the sounds of it, it sounds like you're like sitting like the crest of the hill. You just like need just like that little bit extra. like I said, you don't necessarily even need to spend money for that. If you can find somebody who's, who's local to you, that's like able to make complete songs, even if they're not good. It's just like if you got somebody out there that's like doing it like on the regular and they're completing them, and just being in the room with somebody else, whether they're good or not, is gonna be, you know, I shouldn't say is gonna be, could be a big key. Yeah, just having somebody to riff on and help bounce things off of, because a lot of issues, come down to overthinking, and it's real easy to do a lot of overthinking when you're on your own, especially, if you haven't had some type of, I don't know if even formal education, but some type of guidance from somebody who has been there. But yeah, the guy that, like, I do my lessons on, like, he does all kind of crazy hardcore dubstep stuff, like, and he's like also like, I didn't expect him to like not be knowledgeable. I didn't buy the class because like I didn't think he knew his shit. But I had no idea, like, well, actually, I guess I kind of did a little bit, but like only for like a week or two, because before I got into the class, like the only reason I like spent that much money on the class was because had subscribed to an old service he had. He called the weekly download. For $5 a month, he gave you access to his entire database of his videos that he'd been doing at least one a week of for like I said, probably like 10 or 12 years, maybe 15. But and I was like, well, for $5, I'll check him out, because I saw good content, and he, advertised it, and I was like, well, this is pretty good. I was like, fuck, for $5, I'll check it out. And well, it wasn't a month, it was a week, but it was per week, so I could, just do the $5, and if I didn't think it was worth it, I could sign off. But like I could tell like right away that like the guy was good. Like on YouTube, you see these guys do like these walkthroughs, and like everything is just like, you know, they it's like scripted. Like even if they're like, like decent, like it's like totally like just like a scripted thing. Like when he's doing his videos, like it is like, some of them are scripted, but like he you see him do a lot of like just on the fly production that's like not like the stuff that you're seeing on YouTube a lot of times. You know what I mean? Like because he would like in most of these lessons, the way that they're set up is like, well, each video, because there's multiple videos per each lesson, and the videos are generally like an hour and a half to 2 hours a piece. And like in the first part of the video, he'll kind of like be kind of going over stuff, and then like in the middle of the video, they'll do like the meat of the stuff. They've already kind of, prepped you and got you ready for it. And then afterwards, these were all done live streams with his, his actual like paid course members or whatever. And then they would all be asking him questions and getting clarifications, and he would expound, and he would just like be just like pulling shit up on the fly. And like he it, he could like produce everything. And like I said, the stuff that I knew that he produced was like very dubsteppy, was the kind of stuff that I knew him from. And I didn't get it because of the style of music he made. Like I like dubstep, but like that wasn't why I got it. I love all music, but I got it because, like I said, I saw a video on YouTube or something like that that was it was like really fucking good. And I was like, wow, that was like one of the best fucking YouTube videos on music I ever saw in my life. I can't remember what it was now because oh my God, I've Jeez. I couldn't even estimate how many videos or hours. I've been listening to nothing but that for my music stuff for like the last like few months. Like actually like probably like 6 months. And it's something that like you're gonna be able to come back on again and again. Like it's so deep and like so many layers to it. Like I'm still going back and watching like the very first videos, like and like picking out shit and going, how did I not get that? Like not that they're like essential to doing things, but like you know what I mean? Like no matter where you're at, like there's something in it for you, like from, beginner to advanced. I'd say it's tougher for beginners, but from the way you're describing your issues, I really think a course like that would help. You know what? I should see if I got if there's a public video of his that I can send you to watch. Let me see what I can find on YouTube. I'm sure he's got something up on YouTube. That's probably how I found him. I think I had heard his name before, but I didn't really. This the screen real quick. What kind of music do you try to make or make? I guess not try to make. I say try to make because I'm thinking of myself because I try to make music. At least that's what I say. Oh, where did my thing go? Close the chat. My chat. I lost my chat. I'm gonna anything you typed. I'm gonna have to. I'm not gonna get. I have to reopen my thing and it won't load it. Where is chat? Uh, Open that back up. Hopefully. Damn it. Let me get rid of my mini. I think his course would be very suited to someone who's into that. What do you listen to? Yeah, what do you listen to? What did you listen to growing up? Like, you know, not necessarily like who would be your musical influences, but like just like generally like what kind of stuff, because I'm curious, you know, what songs of his I should send you. I'm looking for actual free musical instructional stuff, but I'm trying to get a vibe for like, like if you're into lo-fi, that definitely kind of meshes into a lot of his thing. And I'm curious like what, other things, might be, potential potential past or, maybe melding interests. Okay, so you're more on the mellow side of things. I think you could still learn a lot from the course. I'm trying to think if he's got any songs that I could send you to show you his skills in that area, because he definitely can. The way I described, I showed him to somebody once before who wasn't really able to get him because he wasn't into a lot of the harder stuff like the dubstep and stuff. And like I said, a lot of his stuff focuses on that. But like I said, he definitely can do it all. He's been in the game for a long time. Let me get my Spotify open here. See if I could come up with something lo-fi-y. What's the search? Here's the search. Huh. You know, this isn't really like in in I don't know. Yeah, I don't think this is necessarily like in the lo-fi thing, but I kind of like want to put it there for some reason. It shows off his sound design really well. Well, I don't know what your listening setup is right now, but
cold as a polar bear, froze. Cold as a polar bear, cold as a polar bear, froze. I don't drink lean no more, cause I ain't got time to be fat as hell.
Why is it so quiet here? I have to. Where is OBS? Let me see. Did I put it on my phone? I hope I didn't. But yeah, if you're into lo-fi, sound design is, probably going to be pretty key. How the hell do I get this back? Oh, there we go.
Just not going to jail, I'm a murderer, but I'm not going to hell. Cold as a polar bear, froze. Cold as a polar bear, cold as a polar bear, froze. Cold as a polar bear. She said that I hold her hair with ice. Cold as a polar bear. She said that I hold her hair with ice, 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 ice. Cold as a polar bear. Cold as a polar bear. Cold as a polar bear. Cold as a polar bear.
Ice cream.
Cold as a polar bear, froze. Cold as a polar bear. She said that I hold her hair with ice. Cold as a polar bear. She said that I hold her hair with ice. Cold as a polar bear. Cold as a polar bear, froze. Cold as a polar bear. Cold as a polar bear, froze. Cold as a polar bear. She said that I hold her hair with ice. Cold as.
Check out this mix. Can't remember if I even heard this. that one's somebody else's one. That first one I played was Ill Gates's mix. Let me go back and I have a folder of his somewhere with some of the ones I really liked. Oh, I'm not seeing it though. I wish I could search my folders. Oh, there we go. This is better. There it is. Here we go. Actually, you know what? You know, I can't remember exactly how that one goes. Let me see what else we got before I jump right into that. How about this? Well, actually, let's check this. Yeah, this one, I think it goes hard without being like too manic or anything. I think the other one does too. Well, like I said, he makes everything, but you know, here's uh Here, I got something to be interesting to watch. Oh, you know what? Let me trying to think what else is on here. But like I said, he's when you go through, like, you make, you know, anything you want. Like the people that are there, these guys are like all like you know, very highly credentialed people. Like, yeah, they are. Yeah, they can produce anything. And it's not just that all the information's there either. He's a very charismatic guy, and he'll be able to hold your attention through the video too. Like a lot of videos, like, you know, like even if they like speak well, it was always kind of hard for me to zone in. There was one other class that it didn't come with any kind of like in-person thing though, and like I bought it because he spoke very well, and when he in his YouTube videos, it was like longer form, and he, you know, the little quirks would come out, and like, you know, you would just follow him. It was like almost like you were talking to someone, you just couldn't talk to him. But then whenever I got the classes, the courses were like completely different. Like they were like shortened and very, you know, highly scripted and very tight. Like there wasn't room for all the little nuances. And even at that, you know, like it's you know, even at that, like it didn't necessarily like feel like, you know, like natural, like if the person was there, it felt kind of like a performance. Whereas like in these videos, like I said, and he's very good at articulating these things and making them, you know, a little bit more simple. I'm looking for the educational stuff because when I searched, I couldn't find his thing, so I searched it on Google and I saw like three videos like right off the top that I remembered, that I was like, those are all three great videos. Here we go. I can't believe he actually has these up as free videos. These right here, go to YouTube, search for this. And you know, I don't think he's gonna give a shit. I'm just gonna play one of them here. Which one's part one? This is a three-part thing, I think. I can't believe he has this much stuff up on YouTube for free. I'm like paranoid that this is my like membership on like the dojo site. I can't believe he's giving this shit all away. Like, but at the same time, like it doesn't even matter. Like, because they fill up their classes. They're yeah. Here we go. I'll put this one on and let him introduce yourself. You could watch this these three if you search YouTube for Producer Path Ill Gates and watch the sound design, 80/20 of sound design, and this ill methodology 2.0. I'm gonna kick this
Welcome
on. I'll let him
to
do
the
his introduction.
workshop. Oh, yeah. All right. So today is the big update to my most important and best workshop ever, the ill methodology. So I've been teaching for a long time. My mom's a teacher, and my dad is a pro musician and a teacher. And basically, I was like, you know, these are good things, you know? So I ended up being a teacher and a musician. Oh, here, I got to straighten my hat. There we go. So I ended up making music, and I always was really open to teaching and help people finish tracks. And before I was touring and stuff, I would ghost produce for people or go over to people's houses and like trick out their studios and set them all up and stuff. And if you are an up and coming musician, you can pretty much start making money as soon as you're good enough to finish tracks that people are impressed by. You don't actually have to be famous to make a decent living as a musician. There's always work, ghost producing, finishing people's tracks, etc. And there's always people out there who are dying to learn more about music. And if you can teach them and teach them well, that's all the credibility you need. Because really, there's only one thing that matters in music, and that is results. Are the results great or are they not? So I'd always been into teaching and sharing knowledge and stuff. And in 2011, I filmed a workshop after touring for I toured that workshop for maybe like a year. And after working with a lot of different musicians, both, super famous musicians who brought me in as like a hired gun to help them with their live setups or whatever, or working with students who were like, struggling to do what they wanted to do, or, had creative blocks or whatever, I learned that basically no amount of sample packs or presets or whatever is gonna make your music for you. You can only proceed. Your creative development, your artistic development only proceeds as far as your personal development. So I made this workshop that was basically like the big picture of everything that you need to know as a musician to kind of, get your bearings and get started, why people get stuck, what kind of life changes you need to make to become a really active, productive musician. And that workshop blew up. Like 100,000 plus people bought the workshop. And, lots of people who went on to be really famous musicians took this workshop. G. Jones, Apache, Morgan Page, Minnesota, Mr. Bill, tons and tons of people took it. Beats Antique, Mimosa, like loads of people who went on to become very successful musicians took it. And a lot of them have bigged me up on it over the years. And you'll see those in the testimonials if you check out any of the testimonial pages or whatever for the dojo. But that workshop has always been the starting point that I recommend for people. And but I did it in 2011. And that was 11 years ago. So I've always been really into the philosophical, psychological, lifestyle design side of being a musician and into communicating that, because that's something that you don't really see it other places. You don't, there's not a lot of courses on this, and it's way more important than anything technical, way more important. So I decided I was going to do an update to the Ill Methodology workshop. Here it is. Make yourself comfortable. Get out a pen and paper and take notes.
Yeah, I don't know how long I'm gonna let this play here, but this is a really long video, so we're definitely not gonna
Methodology 2.0,
get to
Lesson
the end.
0,
But
habit formation and lifestyle design for the modern.
yeah, this one, it does have some technical stuff in it, but it's also got a lot of
modern musician.
I'll ahead.
This is all the stuff that you need to understand before any amount of shortcuts is even useful. Because what are you getting shortcuts to? Where are you going? It's a shortcut to nowhere if you don't do this stuff. All right, so here we go. So these are some questions that I like to ask people. This may sound familiar. Do you ever hear music in your dreams? Well, you wrote that music. You composed it. You produced it entirely. It was in your subconscious mind, but you wrote that music. If you heard music in your dreams ever and you were like, hey, this is dope, that means you have it in you. Okay? It's there. It's there. You've already made music if you've heard music in your dreams. The key is to get it out. You got to ask, do you have trouble getting an idea out before it fades? Especially if you're talking about dream music, it can be hard to get it out. Even writing a dream down is tough before it fades. Do you collect endless amounts of samples and plugins? I know I do. Do you watch lots of tutorials on YouTube or wherever, but get frustrated making tracks? Do you get hyped to work hard at the beginning of the day?
Like I said, I'll go back to this in a second, but for the real technical stuff, like I said, look up at Producer's Path Ill Gates, check out the workflow one, and this 80/20 of sound design, and the 80/20 of finishing music. In fact, this one might have even been a better one. I thought this was another part to the sound design one. Since we were already watching this one, we're just going to stick with it.
Welcome to the workshop. Oh, yeah. All right. So today is
But yeah,
the big update
definitely
to
check those
my
out. They're-
most important
even
and
if
best workshop
you know,
ever,
even if
the
you
ill
never do
methodology.
any of his
So
classes, just
I've been
check
teaching
those
for
videos out
a long
because
time. My mom's a
there's
teacher, and
really
my dad
good
is a pro
information
musician
in
and
there.
teacher. And basically, I
Oh.
was like, you know, these.
it didn't skip forward
But
here.
science has learned that actually it works a lot more. Applied some studies with game theory and stuff, and they started like paying people to smoke crack and a bunch of other things. Follow orders, you know.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. Like I said, he's a very good presenter. He's good at keeping you engaged. Man, I jumped like way.
Than anything technical, way more important. So I decided I was going to do an update to the ill methodology workshop. Hyped to work hard at the beginning of the day, get super amped, but then end up wasting your studio session for one reason or another. Do you get disappointed listening to your work the next day? Does that ever happen? Do you feel inadequate when you compare your music to the music of your heroes? Do you feel like you'll never get all those half-finished tracks done? Does any of this make you depressed sometimes? I get depressed sometimes about it. And do you sometimes feel like giving up? Well, congratulations. You are 100% normal. This is just totally normal for music producers. All of that is normal, and a lot of it never goes away. So if you're waiting for that stuff to go away to start, don't wait. Don't wait. I mean, it's like the best advice ever. I have a friend whose mom, my friend Josh is one of my dear friends I've known since I was a kid. And his mom died of cancer recently. And he was hanging out with his mom on her deathbed. And he asked her, "Mom, do you have any deathbed words of wisdom?" And she said, "Only two. Don't wait." Heavy, heavy. So don't wait. You're normal. You're always going to feel these things. You're always going to feel like your heroes are better than you. You're always going to feel like there's lots about music you don't know. And the key is to make music in the meantime, because it's always the meantime. It's never not the meantime.
This shit's
With
hitting
those
me
things.
hard.
You're never
because,
like,
like,
"Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
it. I've leveled up. I've reached max level as a musician." You'll never say that to yourself, and nor should you, right? So this is all normal. Don't feel bad. Don't feel weird about this stuff. This is all 100% normal. So why do we feel so alone when we deal with these things? Why? Well, should we blame social media perhaps? Can always blame social media. They'll take the heat. Or how about industrial capitalism, the great demon of modern times? Should we blame Bezos? Yeah, my new single, Bezos, dropped today. You should check it out.
Bezos is a good one.
Jeff Bezos, the demon god of industrial capitalism, the end boss.
I should have played at
Bezos!
least a piece of it.
But yeah, you can
It's
blame
intense.
capitalism
He's
if you
got
like
this, like,
capitalism, doesn't mind.
Orchestral thing in there.
Or
going.
how about
It's
all the
pretty
chaos on the
crazy.
news, right? It's just constant mayhem, chaos. The world is falling apart. Things are blowing up. Who can make art at a time like this? Look at that earth. It's on a precipice, and homeboy in a suit's just pushing it over. Who can make music at a time like, or art and music at a time like this? I love the stock art for this too, because when you're looking for stock art for a presentation, everything always has guys in suits as like the protagonist or whatever. So I always try to not use the guy in the suit as a protagonist. But I think it's very fitting that the guy in a suit is pushing the world over a cliff. So I was like, yeah, I'll keep the guy in the suit for that. That's the one time I use the guy in the suit stock art. But yeah, who can make art at a time like this? It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Chaos, mayhem. Well, there are, of course, many other perfectly rational sounding reasons to give up on your dream of music. There's reasons not to do anything. You know, I used to be a big believer in the reasoning that I should never have a kid, for example. And, you know, the way I've come to understand it is a lot of these things, whether it's like, you know, going to Paris in the springtime or like writing a novel that you've always wanted to write or having a kid or whatever, it's a lot like going to Burning Man. You know, when you think about going to Burning Man, there's tons of reasons not to go to Burning Man. It's expensive. You got to take 2 weeks off of work. It's really far. You got to build your own house in the desert. There's all kinds of pretentious douchebags there. And like, you know, it's, you lose your friends, and it's like, it's wasteful with all this consumption. And, you know, there's a million perfectly rational reasons to not go to Burning Man. But you know what? As someone who's gone to Burning Man lots of times, that shit is worth it. It is totally worth it. It will change your life and make it way better. And when you're at Burning Man, you'll be sitting there and you'll look at your friends and you'll be like, I can't believe I didn't do this. What was I doing every other year? This is the best, right? Music is like that too. There's lots and lots of reasons not to ever follow your dreams, to just play it safe, follow orders, you know, participate in the rat race, you know, listen to all the grandparents in your life, etc. There's lots of rational reasons to do that. But if you know in your heart of hearts that you are a musician, well, listen up, because we're going to talk about this. There are many perfectly rational reasons to give up on your dream of music. But, you know, humans can rationalize anything. We can rationalize anything we want. Right? People have rationalized all kinds of crazy things. For example, there is a church about drinking bleach. The FDA was like, if you drink bleach, you'll die. Don't drink bleach. We tried feeding bleach to living things. They always die. That's the point of bleach, right? And there are people out there who are like, no, you know what? The FDA are corrupt. True. And, you know, they don't regulate our food very well. True. And they're in the pockets of the pharmaceutical industry. Also true. Therefore, we should drink bleach. Nah, I don't know about that one. It's a bit of a leap in logic there, guys. But they made a whole church about this to get around the FDA. And they drink bleach. They dilute it a little bit, but they drink little bits of bleach. And one of the most horrible things is they think autism is a disease to be cured. And many of them have kids, and many of those kids are autistic, and they feed bleach to autistic children. It's the worst. This is going on today. Not the most rational thing. Other rational things that we've done in the past that are just as horrible are they used to spray the industrial, like, chemical DDT on children, on cities, on like all of our buildings. It is admittedly why we do not have bed bugs as much today, and why there is a resurgence of bed bugs now that we have stopped doing this. But DDT is like one of the most toxic carcinogenic things ever. And there's this guy with no protective equipment just hosing down a pool full of children with DDT. There's trucks going through the city, blasting the most carcinogenic chemicals that we've known ever, blasting it all over the trees and crops, blasting it all over the hospital.
As I said, this is not like, I believe at you know, some point in the video, he gets to some technical stuff, but overall, this is more of a philosophical one. He does get into it. I think there's like a chunk in the middle that's like, that gives some really solid stuff. But the other ones, the 80-20 of mixing and the 80-20 of I forget, there was two 80-20s, and then there was the other one.
Ever blasting it all over the trees and crops, blasting it all over the hospital, blasting it all over the city, blasting it all over the children. Yep, that seemed rational at the time. This study was really interesting. Anytime you see one of these little links in the presentation notes, I'm going to give you all these notes. If you stay to the end, I'm going to give you all these notes. And anytime you see one of those links, there's a link you can click that has something interesting that I thought you should check out. So this was a study where they had the guy who started the study, the scientist who started the study, he grew up in a community ravaged by addiction, and he saw people get turned into zombies by doing crack and meth and just becoming like incredibly addicted to the point where he was looking at them and he was like, how can you steal from your own parents? Like, what has it done to your mind? And his hypothesis was that becoming a crack addict makes you irrational, right? It seems a pretty reasonable hypothesis, right? But when they applied some studies of game theory and stuff, and they started like paying people to smoke crack and a bunch of other things, and they found out that people who are drug addicts are perfectly rational. They're not insane. They just do things that seem insane to other people because they have very dramatically different values. But even people who are in the depths of a methamphetamine or crack addiction were found to be rational. So our emotions call the shots. We think we're rational and we rationalize anything. But when you actually examine the causes of behavior, it's our emotions, and rationality comes after the fact. A rationalization occurs after behavior. Behavior comes first and then rationalization, which really goes against our notion of free will. But I don't think it's incompatible with free will. I am definitely a believer in free will. I think that there's more to consciousness than science has yet been able to grasp. I don't think it's magic. I just think that we don't understand it yet. But there is some science that definitely understands that decisions come from the unconscious mind, that our unconscious mind is actually running the show, not our conscious mind. Our unconscious mind is running the show. So what we like to believe is that, we have these influences on behavior, like our instincts, our urges, the norms of the society or the activity that we're engaging in, and our habits, that those are influences on behavior, but that reasoning, our beliefs, our desires, our internal monologue, our contemplation and reflection, that reason and rationality is in charge of our behavior. But science has learned that actually it works a lot more like this, where our instincts, our norms, and habits are internalized at an unconscious level. And in the moment, they are what spurs us on to action, and that we rationalize these unconsciously driven actions after we have taken the actions. So they found this out by measuring the brain with brain measuring equipment called electroencephalograms. It's where you set a bunch of magnetic receptors around your nervous system. You've probably seen them before, and you'll see them again in just a second. And they train this machine to detect patterns of activity in the brain. And they found out that they could predict a decision from brain activity before the participant was consciously aware of that decision. So here is a video of that in action from the awesome series Mindfield. Skip to, I think it was 14 minutes in.
YouTubeception.
Something else. A split second before you're aware, you've made them.
This task seems easy enough. Just push either button before the light comes on. So why is it so difficult?
Wow.
It's difficult because this machine is actually reading my mind. It knows when I decide to push a button and lights them up before I can actually push one.
How does it feel when it's happening?
It feels like right then. It already knew. I'm trying to not have my mind read.
Here's how the box works. My decision to push a button doesn't begin when I think it does. It's actually preceded by subconscious activity I'm not aware of, but that the machine can detect. Now, the machine isn't predicting which button I will push. It's determining when I'm about to push one before I know it. For the first few minutes, I push buttons and the box records my brain activity, learning which behaviors follow which subconscious processes. Eventually, the box can know what I'm about to do before even I do.
In other words, it can read my subconscious mind and tell me what I was going to do before I know I was going to do it. That's the part that freaks me out.
This is called a free will experiment because it begs the question of what free will actually is. If your subconscious knows what you're going to do before you do it, is it really your decision, or do you just think it's your decision?
Wow.
Pretty crazy, right? So this is happening in all of our brains all the time. And there are many things that make us all irrational, without exception. Every human being is irrational. And that's because our brains are programmed to keep us alive. They're not programmed to keep us happy. They evolved for our survival, not for our happiness. So if you ever do find yourself depressed or whatever, or anxious, you should remember this. Your brain is evolved to keep you alive, and there's a very important role for fear and anxiety in animals. Like, it keeps you alive. The world is a dangerous place, especially if you're not living in a comfortable city and stuff. So, your brain's not broken. It's just has a different agenda than you. We like to think that we're these perfect rational beings, and we're definitely not. And science shows us that we're not. And if we deny that there are these unconscious influences on our behavior, their influence only becomes stronger, right? It's only like, if you do want to actually exert as much free will as you can in your life, you have to acknowledge irrationality, and you have to seek to go around these automatic sorts of behaviors. Like, for example, the bystander effect is a very real phenomenon where at times when there's like a tragedy, for example, like a murder or an accident, a lot of the time, what the people who are witnessing this terrible thing will do is they'll get out their phones and start filming, and nobody will call the police. Because everybody there is just like, oh, this is a horrible thing. Obviously, someone should call the police, or obviously, someone should help that person. So because it's so obvious that this person needs help, or that the police should be called, I don't need to do it. I'm not responsible. So I'm just going to film on my phone. And like 80% of people will do this in a real crisis, right? You have to actually be trained about the bystander effect and know about the bystander effect to realize that if you are witnessing some sort of a tragic event, yes, it is on you to intervene. If you know about the bystander effect, do something. Like, don't just stand there, do something, because you know what? Most other people are going to do nothing, right? So for more on that, you should check out Dr. Philip Zimbardo. Zimbardo. He famously did the Stanford Prison Experiment. Very, very cool. There's a movie about it. It's like a dramatization that's decent. But the Philip Zimbardo TED Talk is like gangbusters. It's so great. But yeah, so the more we deny our irrationality, the more we deny these tendencies, the more we deny that the unconscious mind exerts control over the conscious mind, and that a lot of the time we are rationalizing decisions made emotionally, decisions made unconsciously, that's really, the role of thinking comes after action, right? The more we recognize this, and the more we can seek to program our own unconscious mind. And that is where, in my opinion, free will enters into the equation. If there is free will, it is the will to program your own mind so that when your unconscious mind inevitably is the one causing the action, you can have as much influence on the unconscious mind as possible. So rather than assuming your influence as the conscious portion of your mind is complete and total, and that your introspection is flawless, rather than assuming that, you got to recognize that, like, evolutionarily, there's lots of stuff going on under the hood of your brain. There's lots of stuff going on. And if all of that stuff were in your conscious awareness all the time, you would be
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I can't really offer any feedback. I'm not qualified, man. Yeah, I'm not. I apologize. I can't do that. That's not my thing. I'm not in any position to be doing that. I don't need to be screwing anybody else's shit up.
paralyzed with information overload, and you would end up getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or whatever. So for the sake of responding quickly, your unconscious mind is driving most of the time, and that's kept you alive. It's not a bad thing that your unconscious mind is driving. It's kept your ancestors alive, right? So it's not bad. Don't think about the unconscious mind as bad. Don't think about, like, acting on the impulses of the unconscious mind and your instincts and stuff as bad.
Yeah, I am
It's
freaking
not bad.
on like no sleep.
It's not bad.
fucking-
It's
I'm
just
not that
not
good. Fucking,
as
I'll screw
available to
something up.
introspection.
It's like working on my car. Like every time I try to work on my car, I screw something up. I don't want to be responsible for explaining something poorly because that shit can do lasting damage.
As the conscious mind. And
Yeah, even when I understand shit well, I'm a very poor communicator. And like I said, I'm still kind of not really over the hump myself yet. Hopefully within the next 2 weeks, I should be able to be like right there.
the sooner you recognize its role, and the sooner you seek to influence consciously the tendencies of your unconscious mind, the sooner you will have some semblance of free will, and the sooner you will actually be able to use your rationality to guide your own behavior. But you're not calling the shots in the moment. You can program your unconscious mind, but in the moment, you're not calling the shots. And that's what that amazing box experiment has shown us.
In fact,
So
I should probably go back and let you watch that because the context on that was yeah, like right here.
skip to, I think it was 14 minutes in.
Something else. A split second before you're aware, you've made them.
This task seems easy enough. Just push either button before the light comes on. So why is it so difficult?
Wow.
It's difficult because this machine is actually reading my mind. It knows when I decide to push a button and lights them up before I can actually push one.
How does it feel when it's happening?
It feels like right then. It already knew. I'm trying to not have my mind read.
Here's how the box works. My decision to push a button doesn't begin when I think it does. It's actually preceded by subconscious activity I'm not aware of, but that the machine can detect. Now, the machine isn't predicting which button I will push, it's determining when I'm about to push one before I know it. For the first few minutes, I push buttons and the box records my brain activity, learning which behaviors follow which subconscious processes. Eventually, the box can know what I'm about to do before even I do.
In other words, it can read my subconscious mind and tell me what I was going to do before I know I was going to do it. That's the part that freaks me out.
This is called a free will experiment because it begs the question of what free will actually is. If your subconscious knows what you're going to do before you do it, is it really your decision, or do you just think it's your decision?
Wow.
Pretty crazy, right? So this is happening in all of our brains all the time. And there are many things that make us all irrational, without exception. Every human being is irrational. And that's because our brains are programmed to keep us alive. They're not programmed to keep us happy. They evolved for our survival, not for our happiness. So if you ever do find yourself depressed or whatever, or anxious, you should remember this. Your brain is evolved to keep you alive, and there's a very important role for fear and anxiety in animals. Like, it keeps you alive. The world is a dangerous place, especially if you're not living in a comfortable city and stuff. So, your brain's not broken. It's just has a different agenda than you. We like to think that we're these perfect rational beings, and we're definitely not. And science shows us that we're not. And if we deny that there are these unconscious influences on our behavior, their influence only becomes stronger, right? It's only like, if you do want to actually exert as much free will as you can in your life, you have to acknowledge irrationality, and you have to seek to go around these automatic sorts of behaviors. Like, for example, the bystander effect is a very real phenomenon where at times when there's like a tragedy, for example, like a murder or an accident, a lot of the time, what the people who are witnessing this terrible thing will do is they'll get out their phones and start filming, and nobody will call the police. Because everybody there is just like, oh, this is a horrible thing. Obviously, someone should call the police, or obviously, someone should help that person. So because it's so obvious that this person needs help or that the police should be called, I don't need to do it. I'm not responsible. So I'm just going to film on my phone. And like 80% of people will do this in a real crisis, right? You have to actually be trained about the bystander effect and know about the bystander effect to realize that if you are witnessing some sort of a tragic event, yes, it is on you to intervene. If you know about the bystander effect, do something. Like, don't just stand there, do something, because you know what? Most other people are going to do nothing, right? So for more on that, you should check out Dr. Philip Zimbardo. Zimbardo. He famously did the Stanford Prison Experiment. Very, very cool. There's a movie about it. It's like a dramatization that's decent. But the Philip Zimbardo TED Talk is like gangbusters. It's so great. But yeah, so the more we deny our irrationality, the more we deny these tendencies, the more we deny that the unconscious mind exerts control over the conscious mind, and that a lot of the time we are rationalizing decisions made emotionally, decisions made unconsciously, that's really, the role of thinking comes after action, right? The more we recognize this, and the more we can seek to program our own unconscious mind. And that is where, in my opinion, free will enters into the equation. If there is free will, it is the will to program your own mind, so that when your unconscious mind inevitably is the one causing the action, you can have as much influence on the unconscious mind as possible. So rather than assuming your influence as the conscious portion of your mind is complete and total, and that your introspection is flawless, rather than assuming that, you got to recognize that, like, evolutionarily, there's lots of stuff going on under the hood of your brain. There's lots of stuff going on. And if all of that stuff were in your conscious awareness all the time, you would be paralyzed with information overload, and you would end up getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or whatever. So for the sake of responding quickly, musician, only you can make you into a great musician. He was actually, whether you are too proud to take help, listen to a musician that they might like totally hate, but they listen to their, like, for example, like, Born in the USA, that good. It's how a lot of musicians get good. That good. It's how a lot of music for the fans. Would be nice to have sex with. I'm not having that.
Looking for something a little bit more technical. I think maybe he doesn't hit on anything
I've
too
made that
technical in
decision.
this one, but those
I
other
am a married
videos he
man.
does.
I stick to my decision. Usain Bolt is an athlete. He sticks to his decision. It's who he is. So he doesn't think about that. He doesn't think about having an existential crisis every time he sees a chocolate bar, right? Because decision fatigue is real, right? Decision fatigue is a real thing. That's why people are like, Steve Jobs famously had like 50 copies of the same outfit and ate the exact same thing for lunch every day. And a lot of very successful people are like that. They'll wear the same thing, they'll eat the same lunch. And that's because they're conserving their decision fatigue for the most relevant decisions. They're recognizing that they can only make so many decisions in a day. Sometimes life happens. And I know a few people who got like 8 videos designed around all this psychological science that I learned when I headliners, one of your friends, because then you have a deadline and the deadline is real, but you have to make music day on the other days. Post your plan physically in your house, post compressor. And building and really studying and learning your reference playlist. Like I said, there's no absolutes. There are only references. This is where you take your having fresh style.
I can't believe they have this one up on
So
YouTube.
important.
A lot of these.
Fans are listening for style. That's what they care about. Because style is saying what you have to say.
Yeah,
without
let me go
using
back
words.
just a little more. This actually.
Sticking to your guns
Really
for the
good
90
stuff.
days. And these are like willpower hacks. Because remember, you only have to have willpower for 90 days. And then habit takes over. And all this shit, if you do all this other shit, it makes it so much easier. And the people
I'm
who
doing
have
this just
done
so, like,
these
if anything
Remix Your
comes
Life
up, like, they
programs
can
and
see
stuff
that this
that
is,
we
like,
do at the
the
dojo, the
YouTube
people
one.
who do are the
Don't
most
want
successful
anyone
the
to
people
be
who do
like,
these things.
you're giving away the class.
All right, let's talk about peas. You want to talk about peas? Let's talk about peas. So, the Pareto principle, otherwise known as the 80-20 rule. Pareto was an economist who liked to grow pea plants. He and his pea plants rocked the world with their weapons-grade philosophical insights. He found out, Pareto noticed as he was growing pea plants, that 20% of his pea plants would give him 80% of the pea yield. And in subsequent generations, he found that breeding the best plants, the 20% hard-working plants that gave him most of the yield, breeding them together would increase the overall yield. But no matter what, in every generation, there was always an 80-20 distribution, where 20% of the pea plants were giving 80% of the peas. Then, being a good economist, he thought, hey, what else can you apply the 80-20 rule to? And it turns out any organic system has some variation of the 80-20. Maybe it's 70-30, maybe it's 90-10, but any organic system, there's always a 20% roughly that is doing the heavy lifting. So you always want to look for that 20%, the magic 20%. So in my opinion, for musicians, some of the things that are in the magic 20%, having fresh style is so important. Fans are listening for style. That's what they care about. Because style is saying what you have to say without using words. Style speaks at a deeper level than technical skill. Style is a lot more engaging to fans than technical skills are. There is a level of technical incompetence beyond which you are you can't make a track that sounds like a song. You know, there's like a bottom threshold for technical skill where you're just disqualified. But once beyond that, style is far more important than technical skill. You should learn audio editing first. Don't start with MIDI. MIDI is cool, but audio editing is more important. Everything becomes audio in the end, and you can do a surprising amount with audio editing once you learn all the tips and tricks and start flipping things backwards and glitching them out and all that. You can do a lot with audio editing. Audio editing is far more important to learn than MIDI, than synthesizers, than any of that. Then you want to do the arrangement exercise. And this is where you take your reference songs, you load them into a DAW, and you make empty MIDI clips that represent all the sounds that you can hear. You listen as carefully as you can and try and make empty clips. You know, it could be an empty audio clip if you haven't done MIDI yet. But you want to have empty clips in your arrangement window that represent every single thing that happens in the song. And then you want to try and repopulate that arrange window once you have a picture of the song, and try and recreate the song if you like, or try and make a new song with a similar composition. Right? That's called the arrangement exercise. I still do the arrangement exercise. It is a very, very effective way to understand and study your reference tracks. Then the next most important thing to learn is gain staging or leveling with groups, buses, and clippers. Okay, gain staging, getting the relative volumes of the sounds right, that's the magic 20% for mixing. No amount of EQs or compressors or fattener plugins are gonna help if you've got your volumes at the wrong levels. It's the 20% of mixing, and that's why every mixing board, the volume faders are the biggest part of the interface, and they're the closest thing to the engineer, right? Volume. And just gain staging. I have a weekly download about this where I mix a track just by adjusting the levels and using clippers to take off the peaks and then putting the sounds in groups. And that is so much more important than EQ and compressor. And building and really studying and learning your reference playlist. Like I said, there's no absolutes. There are only references. Learning to use layering and saturation before EQ and compression. Layering and saturation are actually much more effective solutions to many of the things that people think they need EQ and compression for. And layering, if you know audio editing, you know layering. All right, and sample real physical things using your phone or a mic. Physical sounds just have this incredible quality to them that really makes a song sound real. You know, and I try and use physical sources for my sounds as much as possible, but that's as easy as just going around with your iPhone mic. You know, I mean, I don't know if you saw when I was on Andrew Huang's 4 Producers 1 Sample show, but I had to make a whole track out of a squeaky door hinge. It was crazy. It was a shitty cell phone MP3 of a squeaky door hinge. But you can make anything out of anything. When things are physical, it's cool. They have a subtlety that synthesizers do not. And you should collect samples, not gear and VSTs. You don't need all that gear. Remember my homeless friend who was on a record with Aphex Twin. Remember that Kendrick Lamar's The Beat for Humble was made on an iPhone with GarageBand. You don't need gear or VSTs. You do need samples. You need to fetishistically collect samples. But you don't need a lot of gear. You don't need a lot of plugins. All right, so this is a quote from Isaac Newton. He's a man of many great accomplishments. The greatest, in his own opinion, was that he died a virgin, which is wild to me. Oh, man, religion was a big deal back then. It was a lot bigger deal. But anyway, he said, if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants, which is a great and humble quote from such a great person. Oh, and Bulk says, is it possible to do gain staging at an acceptable level strictly on headphones? Yep. yeah, you can do gain staging without even listening to the song. You know, you're just using the levels on the meters, and you know, I mean, yeah, you're gonna probably adjust it, but you can do most of your gain staging without even listening to the song. Um, you just gotta understand it. Get your head inside of it. Practice it a bunch of times. And a lot of times I'll do leveling, and I'll like level like a whole bunch of tracks, and I'll be like, okay, let's see how those levels sound, and then I'll play it. But you do need to practice. But once you have practiced, you don't even need headphones. Okay, so if I've seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Thank you, Isaac Newton. Here's something you need to know. It's okay to have heroes, and it's okay to learn by copying at first. That's fine. That's fine. It's okay to copy at first. Just don't release plagiarism. That's it. You know, you can copy all you like as long as you're not like putting out someone else's work and be like, I invented everything about this, right? You should check out this film, Everything is a Remix, and that is a hyperlink. When you get the notes, you can click that. It's a really great documentary. I try and make everybody watch it. You want to get serious with your reference tracks, and remember, there are no rules. There are only references. So when you're selecting reference tracks, you're listening for translation across systems. I mean, you know, you're of course first listening for style, if they're a reference track for making your own music. If they're reference tracks that are just like, I want to understand what a sound system sounds like so I can compare this sound system to the sound system at my home, then you might have a list of reference tracks that includes like wildly different genres, because it helps you like map the sound system itself. You know, and a lot of audio engineers, like I remember when I was on tour with Excision, the sound engineer would always play this like really cheesy song about hockey from his childhood. That was like by Stompin' Tom Connors. It was like, oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you could name, and the best game you could name is the good old hockey game. And I thought this was like, you know, kind of punk rock or something, like, because they're Canadians and they're touring in America. And I asked him about it, and I was like, no, I've heard this song on more sound systems than any other song. Like, he loved hockey, so he heard that song at every hockey game he ever went to in arenas, and he knows how that exact song should sound in an arena. He's internalized it at this deep level from going to so many hockey games. So it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You know, if you're testing a sound system, you can have references that are all over the map. But for your music making, you want to have references that are in a relevant style. And then beyond that, you want to listen for translation across systems. That reference should sound good on iPod, on iPhone headphones. It should sound good on a computer speaker. It should sound good on a PA system. It should sound good on a Bluetooth speaker. It should sound good on a hi-fi home stereo. It should sound good, you know, kind of around a corner. You know, it should sound as intended pretty much everywhere. Like, it should sound like the mix should retain its cohesion and balance despite being on wonky sound systems. That's what you're looking for, translation across sound systems. Then you want to get a bunch of visualizers so you can see the levels, you can see the different frequencies, and especially so that you can see the stereo image. And if you can get an analyzer where it has stereo across the spectrum, so that you can see the stereo on the highs, stereo on the mids, stereo on the lows. Honestly, most people's biggest problem with mixing is wide, dry highs on sounds that are just like incidental sounds. Wide, dry highs on incidental sounds. Things like hi-hats. People are like, I gotta reinvent the hi-hat. I'm gonna make it all fucking pan around your head. And then like you can't listen to the vocal or the main synth riff because the hi-hat is the most noticeable thing, right? So wide, dry highs. Don't do wide, dry highs. Listen for the three extremes, okay? The extreme highs, the extreme lows, and the extreme edges of the stereo field. You want to listen for what's going on in the pain zone. That is that area between 2.5 and 4K, where if you look at the Fleischer-Munson curve, the human ear is the most sensitive. And you should note that we are especially sensitive to what are known as vocaloid formants. And these are voice-like sounds. And a formant is usually, there's like two peaks in the spectrum. And I kind of like to think about them as like two lips in a mouth going like yoy, 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 right? So things that are triggering, that are vocaloid, they trigger the brain to think like, oh, this is a voice. Like there's the highs, the extreme lows.
It's actually like a little tidbit that I just got that I think I like glossed over every other time.
On sound.
and like I said, this is not the most dense on technical information. There's, you know, the other ones that I pointed out earlier should have more, like that one there, the 80/20 of sound design. I forget the other ones. There was another 80/20.
That are just like incidental sounds, wide, dry highs on incidental sounds. Things like hi-hats. People are like, I gotta reinvent the hi-hat. I'm gonna make it all fucking pan around your head. And then like you can't listen to the vocal or the main synth riff because the hi-hat is the most noticeable thing, right? So wide, dry highs. Don't do wide, dry highs. Listen for the three extremes, okay? The extreme highs, the extreme lows, and the extreme edges of the stereo field. You want to listen for what's going on in the pain zone. That is that area between 2.5 and 4K, where if you look at the Fleischer-Munson curve, the human ear is the most sensitive. And you should note that we are especially sensitive to what are known as vocaloid formants.
This is the
And
part
these
I
are
want.
voice-like sounds. And a formant is usually there's like two peaks in the spectrum. And I kind of like to think about them as like two lips in a mouth going like yoy, 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 right? So things that are triggering, that are vocaloid, they trigger the brain to think like, oh, this is a voice. And then your brain has all these extra modules for signaling voices out of a background, right? So we are the most sensitive to the 2.5 to 4K range, and we are the most sensitive specifically to vocaloid formants in the 2.5 to 4K range. Transients are the initial volume spikes on the sounds. That's a very important dimension to listen for. And the balance of transients and hierarchy of transients in your reference songs is very important to analyze. Then ultimately you want to be listening for the front and the back of the mix. The front and the back of the mix. Yes, we know that there's left and right. We know that there's high and low frequencies, but the front and the back of the mix are what you're trying to create to make a mix that makes sense. So you want to create, whether you're making vocal music or not, you want to create a singer, which is in front of the band, which is working together as in the back. And one thing that I wish I learned way earlier is ninja sounds. At least half the sounds in your song should be actively trying to avoid listener attention. At least half of the sounds in your song should be actively trying to avoid listener attention. These sounds are the ninja sounds, the utility sounds that are there to make the song work. They serve a function, and you want them to serve that function invisibly. Okay? So you want a singer, which is in front, and the band, which is in back. The focus should stand out of the mix. The accompaniment should blend in. Okay? And here's the magic question to ask when you are mixing. People always ask, like, when do I use what? When do I use what? This is the magic question that tells you when to use what, and then you won't have to ask anybody else. Ask yourself, does this sound need to stand out or blend in? Is this the singer or is it the band? Then adjust the level accordingly. The level, the volume level, that's it. Not EQ, not compression, the motherfucking volume fader. Change the volume to make it stand out or blend in. 80% of the time, that's enough. If it's not, then ask, does an aspect of the sound need to stand out or blend in? Is there an aspect of this sound that needs to stand out or blend in? And then you would adjust the relevant aspect in the sound as appropriate. So for frequency, usually you can solve your frequency problems with layering or saturation. Turn to EQ later, you know, unless it's like really obvious frequency problem, like there's like ripping subs that you got to get rid of or whatever. But don't just go high pass everything because you read some article that said you should high pass everything. Because every time you process a sound, you gain something, but you also lose something. And if you want to have your drums sound really high fidelity and also have highs, maybe layer some record crackle over them. Maybe, like, I have this white noise that I got from my Instant Pot escaping gas. And I use that, like, I use that for white noise all the time because it's like a real physical white noise and sounds real. And a lot of the time I'll layer that in onto drums, you know, and that adding more white noise is great for adding highs. And as long as you shape it so that the listener perceives it as part of the drum, it's way more effective than EQing, because then you don't have to fuck up your original drum sound, right? You just add another layer. As long as you're careful, you make them work together, the listener will never know that they are two sounds. If you need more power, try adding layers. A lot of the time I'll select my sounds for the texture, you know, like my snare, my kick. A lot of the time my bass sound, I'll select them for texture, but they might need more subs. So I'll layer another sub underneath rather than trying to squeeze blood from a stone. You could also get more power by saturation. And then I turn to compressor and EQ last. Okay. For transient, you need more transient. Sometimes just cutting a little click onto the beginning of something is the perfect thing to give it a transient. If it has too much transient, try a clipper. Hard digital clipping, that thing that they tell you not to do, I'm telling you to do it because it works. And in many cases, it is much more transparent than limiters or compressors, especially on drums. Stereo, you want more stereo? Add some layers, make copies of a sound and pan all the copies out, because that's what a chorus effect is. Then you can add phaser, reverb, or widener. The last thing I turn when I'm trying to add stereo images, actual stereo widener plugins. Normally I try and do it with layering, or I'll get a chorus or phaser reverb. If you want the focus of sound to stand out, you need to make space. Make space by muting stuff. Usually tracks need way less stuff. People are working too hard trying to impress each other. You know, you need to work less and make more room. You know, like you look at the design for like a fucking iPhone commercial. It's like the most expensive advertising in the world. It's literally just a picture of an iPhone and everything is white. It's just a picture of the iPhone. You know, because if you want to make something stand out, you got to make space. So make space with mutes or EQ on the other sounds. And remember, when in doubt, simplify. One thing that I like to recommend, and I also like to do, is to take all the volumes down and then bring up only the most essential sounds first, until you have the minimum number of sounds for your shit to sound dope. Because perfection is not when there's nothing left to add, it's when there's nothing left to take away. All right, and don't forget the most important thing of all, have fun. Have lots of fun. Because fun is what's going to keep you coming back. If you forget to have fun, you will make it seem like work, and eventually you will rebel against yourself, and you won't do it as often. So, you know, take discipline seriously, but fuck around. Please fuck around. Do stupid shit when you make music. Have a good time. Try and make like absurd, crazy, wild music. You know, don't be stressing yourself out. You know, take your discipline seriously, but don't take the actual music making seriously. Like just remember Zaytoven. Homeboy killed it in like fucking 5 minutes. Like he had extra time on a 10-minute timer. He had extra time. That's insane.
It's
All right.
actually impressive.
Lots of love. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, you still out there?
Because we have good taste. Bands.
Yeah, where was that part? Here it is.
Finishes early. This is, see, they don't pay for that shit by giving everybody who goes to the casino. Because if you keep playing, statistically, if there is no, they're like, but for right? So roll the dice more, and often I get the criticism when I explain to people this part of my methods. They're like, but formulaic low effort music is trash. I want to make music that is rule breaking, high effort, intricate music. And I'm like, yo, that's cool. I try to make rule breaking, high effort, non-formulaic, intricate music that pushes myself to my limits as well. That is my goal. Nobody is like, yo, I only want to make formulaic, low effort trash music. Nobody sits down and says that, you know? And if the people who are into formulaic, low effort music, a lot of those people are like, yo, I'm going to work so hard until I have the perfect formula that I can't make a bad track. You know? So guys like Zaytoven, you know, who did all Gucci Mane's beats and lots of other artists from Atlanta. Zaytoven, like if you actually, you know what? Let's watch the Zaytoven, like, because making formulaic music, it's like you got to put in work to make music that is formulaic and good. So there's this series Against the Clock, which is so cool. But check out Zaytoven's Against the Clock. Like, you have 10 minutes. The whole video is 8 minutes long. Motherfucker finishes early. This is so crazy. This series is the best. Check out Against the Clock. I love it.
Yo, what's up, man? It's your boy Zaytoven checking in right here, and I'm going against the clock with Fact
Yeah, this
TV.
is impressive.
Check me out. Let me see.
Yeah, this actually might be more your speed.
I love that his homeboy's rolling a blunt.
Hey man, for real, the beat really already done. But you know what, since we doing this, let me do a little freestyling, do a little extra something for y'all real quick. Let me do it like I would do it in church or something like that.
It's always the people who play piano in church. He's not even recording now. He's just jamming for fun. Like just trying to figure it out.
Hey, that's it. So, you know, that it is. You got your masterpiece. What's that, 5 minutes? Did we do it? Come on, man. It's a classic, just like that. Every song from my first hit record to So Icy to my #1 record in the country, Papers, to the, you know, many different hits that I have had over my career, all the beats has been really less than 10 minutes. And the reason it is because I really work off of, you know, how I feel, you know what I mean? It's being spontaneous when I sit down in front of the keyboard and the drum machine and not overthinking what I'm trying to do. Is just really letting, you know, my musical ability just flow out of me. Today we didn't really...
I didn't realize how perfectly what he just said lines up with the point of this presentation. That's actually amazing. I'm glad I randomly decided to include this. Listen to what this motherfucker says, okay? There's, like, listen to this, right? This guy's made hits. Like, he's made hits galore. Listen to what he fucking says and think about what I told you before about habit and instinct.
From my first hit record to So Icy to my #1 record in the country, Papers, to the, you know, many different hits that I have had over my career, all the beats has been really less than 10 minutes. And the reason it is because I really work off of, you know, how I feel, you know what I mean? It's being spontaneous when I sit down in front of the keyboard and the drum machine and not overthinking what I'm trying to do. Is just really letting, you know, my musical ability just flow out of me. Today we didn't really have a drum machine. We didn't really have sounds that I would normally use. So, you know, we just had to go buy a new MPC Live, use the sounds that was in the machine already. But, you know, it was still cool.
I can't believe he just said that he just, like, this was his first day with the MPC. You know, I mean, he's obviously used MPCs, but he just used the presets because he hasn't loaded any sounds onto the fucking thing yet.
Now I'm working with Young Pinch, really one of the hottest artists coming out, period. You know what I mean? He got a unorthodox style and flow, then he looks like a star. He act like a star, and you gonna, yeah, and then when you see him, when you hear what he do in the booth, you gonna know he's a star. So those are the type of people I connect myself with, you know what I mean? Those are the guys that, you know, continue to make me grow and get bigger, you know, as the years goes on, So I really did the first 5 minutes, really 4 minutes, but I did an extra little freestyle with the extra minute. So we'll take that as 5 minutes. Now I got Young Pinch in here. He gonna take probably less than 5 minutes. He might take, what you think?
We're just gonna go through it one time, and then we'll just pick some pieces from that shit and have a hit.
Yeah, so, you know, really the song will be done, not just a beat in 10 minutes, but a song done in less than 10 minutes. So that's how we get out.
Beast boy in this song. Beast boy in this song. Look, big body when I'm riding, big body when I'm riding, big body when I'm riding, yeah. I'ma drive it like I stole it, I'ma drive it like I stole it, I'ma drive it like I stole it, yeah. Beast boy on the way, Zaytoven on the beat. There ain't nothing they can say, you know we making some heat. Look, Beast boy on the way, Zaytoven on the beat. There ain't nothing they can say, no, you know we making some heat. Hop in the whip, drive it like I stole it, you know that I'm rolling. West Coast party, what I be smoking on. She gonna roll with us, yeah. Yeah. West Coast when I'm riding, she wanna roll, she can't hide it.
I mean, you get the
Don't
picture,
fight it.
right? So even people who do have the objective of making formulaic, low-effort music, the reason why it's like low effort, why they try to make it easy, is they try to make music without overthinking. You know, the point of drilling like this is to make it so that you can let, as Zaytoven says, you can not overthink it and let your musical instincts and musical abilities flow, right? Getting into that flow state, right? Getting into that flow state. It's really far more about flow state than it is about thinking, because remember, the actual forces that shape our behavior are unconscious, right? So if you go fast, you don't give yourself time to think. And if what comes out sucks, then practice. You'll get better. And then you'll get to the point where you can just go. And the people who are real masters, they can make music on the spot, you know? So it's not, you know, yeah, like nobody's trying to make bad formulaic low effort music, you know, myself included. My music, I typically end up spending quite a while on my tracks, usually like 20 hours or more, you know. But yeah, you know, nobody's sitting down to make bad music, okay? But you have to make a bunch of bad music to make good music. So if you can embrace like, hey, I'm gonna have to make a bunch of bad music to be able to make good music, the sooner you embrace that, the better, you know, because you will get good. There's no one who does like 1,000 fucking tracks and doesn't get good. All right, so remember this, you know, also too, if you're like, I don't want to make formulaic bullshit bad music, remember this. The point at first is not the songs themselves. The point at first is not the songs themselves. The point is self-mastery. The songs are just stepping stones in your creative path for you to learn discipline, which is showing up no matter what. No matter what kind of day you're feeling, fuck waiting for inspiration to take action, right? You take action and then you get inspired because you took action, not the other way around. You don't take action because you got inspired. That is a naive outsider way to look at it, right? An artist, you know, amateurs, like this Chuck Close quote. Fuck, I should have included it. Let's see, where is it? Chuck Close, amateurs, inspiration. Yeah, I should have included this Chuck quote. Yeah, images. Yeah, Chuck Close is one of my favorite visual artists, and he said in this quote, or actually, let's read it off here. Inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just show up and get to work. If you wait around for the clouds to part and a bolt of lightning to strike you in the brain, you're not going to make an awful lot of work. All the best ideas come out of the process. They come out of the work itself. Thank you, Chuck Close. Okay, so self-mastery. Discipline is showing up no matter what. And finishing is the most fundamental skill of any artist. Learn to finish before you learn anything else. Because you must learn, like for production is composition, mixing, and sound design. All three of those things. You can't be a producer and not ever learn the basics of mixing. You can't be a producer and not be a composer. You can't be a producer and not learn anything about sound design. You have to learn all three. Ignore any one of these three and you will have a weakness. Okay? And the only way to learn all three and how they work together is to finish, right? So back to this diagram, because remember, you know, when we saw this diagram earlier in the presentation, we were talking about like, you know, free will and the role of the unconscious mind and stuff. But I want you to remember what Zaytoven said in that other video. You know, he said, I don't overthink it. I just let my musical ability flow, right? So reason is a good guide for what to practice. You know, it helps you to decide to be a musician in the first place. But when you're in the flow state, reason does not enter into it. It's all about instincts, norms, and habits. So instincts, if you want, instincts are like your artistic muscle memory. You have to have repetitions to build it up. Because what seems like a good idea in the moment, you may find as the song comes to completion that many of the ideas that seemed like the best idea at the time are not actually helping you get the process completed, right? And it's only by completing the process that you can look back and see which of your actions made sense, because they all felt good in the moment, right? And our instincts are often wrong, just like with confirmation bias or the bystander effect. Our instincts are often wrong. You know, you have to train your instincts before you can rely on them. And that comes down to repetition, right? Or to build your artistic muscle memory. To study the norms, because the norms also influence our action. So yeah, you know, don't try and be like normal to fit in, because that's whack, but understand the norms of your field, understand the norms of your genre, understand what rules there are to break before you break them, right? So study, ear training, referencing, You know, reference. The more you are hardcore about your list of reference tracks and the more you are hardcore about understanding those reference tracks, the better a producer you're going to be. And the more relevant the knowledge you glean is going to be to your own music, right? So, because there are no absolutes, there are only references, right? And then habit, you literally can't make any progress without having a habit of making music. You can't get anywhere, okay? So why are habits so important? Well, the number one reason why habits are so important is because habits conserve willpower. Habits conserve willpower, right? Well, what does this mean? Well, you know, we are forced to choose between what we want and what we want right now very often. You know, you may want to have a happy, successful marriage, and then you may find yourself in a situation where you're confronted with temptation, and you will have to exercise willpower and keep your eye on the prize, the happy, successful marriage, and say, hey, you know, a moment of caving into hedonism is not worth my marriage. So I'm going to exercise willpower, right? So a lot of people think that it works like this all the time. That's kind of, or like they think about like a person who's trying to lose weight, and they think of, or like an athlete, you know. But it's like if Usain Bolt goes into a corner store and there's like a bunch of chocolate bars and stuff below the cash, he's not having an existential crisis every time he sees a chocolate bar, right? Just like I'm not having an existential crisis every time I meet an attractive person that would be nice to have sex with. I'm not having that existential crisis because I've made that decision. I am a married man. I stick to my decision. Usain Bolt is an athlete. He sticks to his decision. It's who he is. So he doesn't think about that. He doesn't think about having an existential crisis every time he sees a chocolate bar, right? Because decision fatigue is real. Right? Decision fatigue is a real thing. That's why people like, Steve Jobs famously had like 50 copies of the same outfit and ate the exact same thing for lunch every day. And a lot of very successful people are like that. They'll wear the same thing, they'll eat the same lunch. And that's because they're conserving their decision fatigue for the most relevant decisions. They're recognizing that they can only make so many decisions in a day, and they want their decisions to be as relevant as possible. So if you're humming and hawing about what you're going to eat every single morning, you'll get burned out trying to write music later. So a lot of the most successful people are creatures of habit, especially in the morning, and they will design their morning to be basically like you could hand instructions to someone else and someone else could do your exact morning. So that you can spend as much time as possible on autopilot, right? Autopilot is not bad. Because remember, the unconscious mind is there for you. It's there to serve you. It's there to serve your needs for your survival, right? It's not bad to go on autopilot if you yourself have programmed the autopilot. So decision fatigue is real. Willpower is resisting temptation. Discipline is active habit creation. And when you use the power of habit to make your autopilot the one that resists temptation, then you can focus on other things, right? So you use discipline to create habit, to program your unconscious mind, thus that you no longer need willpower, because doing the things that you want to do is a matter of habit, and it happens automatically, and you don't have to think about it, right? So in the study of habit, it takes between 9 days to 1 year to form a new habit. The average is 3 months or 90 days.
So I am
This means
get going. If you're out there, thanks for being there. Hope to see you next time. Peace out.